a vampire! Henry's a vampire! Henry's a vampire! It's so cool! Greetings and salutations, my name is Daltrian, helping you build killing machines so that you can dominate PvP and special hero maps. If you want help earning all the orbs, feathers, sacred coins, and heroes the game throws at you every week, consider subscribing. Let's get his digits, and if you thought they were going to be terrible because he's a mage, you're wrong. 165 base stats total. Wow, that's incredible. And taking a look at what his stats are, he has a wonderful resistance, so that's what we're going to be tanking, not defense. 26 isn't bad, especially for a mage, but you know what, with 36 hit points, that's abysmal for many things. It's good for a mage, it's terrible for an armor unit, which we are. So we are slow, we need to be careful about that. 34 speed though matches Amelia, which is wonderful, so we are basically tied for the fastest unit available for armor. Let's see what he swings with. Spectral Tome Plus. You can inherit this on someone else, and if you want to make everybody panic, this works. It makes everybody panic within 2 spaces of the target whenever you smack them, flipping around all their bonuses and the penalties. It's wonderful. Reprisal is there so that whenever he starts to get hit, you can go ahead and hit harder back. And Live for Honor is great to see again. This was a limited time skill. It's back on this limited time unit, so this will help you get all those extra badges for those sacred seals that you want to go ahead and start to build up. And Armor March 3 is wonderful, 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 so that way we can eliminate that terrible penalty of moving slow with this particular unit, as long as we're standing next to another armor, of course. Let's look at the obituaries, and we can see here that we are definitely terrible when it comes down to defending against melee attacks, but we're really good at deflecting people whenever they are at a range and they're using magic. But otherwise, honestly, these aren't that great numbers. Looking at them across the board, they're pretty bad. Now, mind you, this is without any kind of buff in a team, and since this is an armor unit, the fact is he's gonna get an armor buff from somebody. He's gonna get a hone or a ward or a goad, so that's going to help out quite a lot, as we're going to talk about in a moment. But at least a vanilla, if he's out in the open, he takes care of a lot of stuff by himself. He can handle a Reinhardt, a Xander, Hector. I mean, these are all units that are pretty potent, and he could take care of them. And of course, he could take care of high defense but low res blue targets like Gwen's and Lucas's. So you know what, he has a lot that he can handle without worrying. Now, of course, anything with an armor slaying weapon is going to kill him, especially the red ones. Those are all going to just slice through him. Henry the Happy Vampire. Yes! He's a fantastic unit. He's not the best mage in the game. He's not the best armor unit in the game. It's hard to classify him. It's easy to say, oh, he's an armored mage, but he's a little awkward to get used to. But once you put him on the field and you play around with him and you see how he operates, wonderful, wonderful unit. He fits well in Armor Emblem, obviously, with Armor March, but he also can mix in well with other teams as long as he gets a buff. That's the big thing about Henry. He has a wonderful stat line, but it's a little flat. And so with that stat line, you need to give him buffs. It doesn't matter how you build him or what you do, he just needs to have that buff. Once you do, then he starts to really perform, almost overperform in a lot of different regards. He does like to have assistance as far as movement skills go, so he would like to have swap, he would like to be swapped, he would like to be repositioned, he would like some guidance, I mean, the whole 9 yards. Really does help him out, because when it comes down to it, he has terrible hit points for an armor unit. Pretty good for a mage. That's not bad at all. That's not even the high end, but yeah, that's acceptable. But the thing is that he's really slow moving. He's very vulnerable to a lot of things, specifically archers. Archers will ruin his day so quickly, and you don't expect it because you think, oh no, you know, he's an armored unit, and that's not a slouch of an armor value there, but it's not good, especially with only 36 hit points. He's gonna fall quick if you let him. He'll fall just as quick as any other mage out there, so you have to be very careful with handling him. Otherwise, like I said, as soon as you give him one buff, he can really hone in on that role and take care of it. You could even go and give him a fortified defense, and he'll be able to take that hit and then still deal out something back. It's probably the worst option to go with him, since he has such a great resistance, and since he has a really nice speed for an armor unit, an okay speed for a mage. As soon as you buff anything, it puts it to the point where it's not just viable, but it's really darn good. So make sure he's in a team that has buffs. Make sure that you support him. If he's the only armor in your team, build it around him, and then make sure that he's getting the movement support that he needs. Otherwise, if he is in an armor emblem team, just remember, now you finally have somebody who could attack at a range. It's wonderful. Make sure you give him all those sweet, sweet, sweet armor buffs too. If you're looking for some cheap upgrades to fill them out, swap is actually a really great idea on armor units. Whenever you use swap, it lets them just keep that nice tight formation that they have and moves people around. Reposition is a good option. You definitely want to have some in your team, but honestly, swap on Henry here is not a bad idea. If you want to go ahead and fill in that A slot, Darting Blow is probably the best without any other skill or support going on. Darting Blow is going to help him get that double and really go along. Now, if you want to go with Death Blow, that's actually really good too, and there are other skills that you could combine with that in order to make that more potent, but it's not going to get you as many kills, but it's also going to be safer because you're not going to rely on a double as much with Death Blow there. And of course, if you don't really care about killing things, but you need him to support everybody, Fortress Defense 3 is a wonderful A slot. You can go ahead and give that to him. He's going to stick around for quite a while if you do that. As far as some good substitutions, you can go with Moonbow. Honestly, you just want to get rid of Reprisal. It's not good for him. He doesn't have the hit points for it, and you don't want to rely on something that gets you hit. But that low cooldown is wonderful, so Moonbow is a fantastic substitution for that. You could go with Draconic Aura if you're going to keep him in an Armor Emblem team and buff him up a lot. I am a little bit on the fence about it, to be honest with you, but you know what? The math is there, so you could do it that way. Renewal 3 is an okay B slot just because if this will let him continue to move along and do what he's doing, because he is going to need to double in order to kill a lot of ranged units, and he has a good resistance, so he'll be able to handle the mages, but you know, after a while he'll start to wear a little bit thin. This is more or less for Tempest Trials, not necessarily for something like PvP Arena, but that is a skill. Speaking of PvP though, Bowbreaker is almost a must on him. Bows are going to just shred Henry, and if you can't get him away from the bow, this is basically what you're going to need to have on him to save his bacon. So there's a lot of interesting things you could do with Henry, to be quite honest with you, and they are all very along the lines of what you would want to do with a mage anyway. So let's go and talk about the most popular options, starting with a Bladetome build. You can see here that his kills aren't necessarily all that super great. We do have Close Counter, he needs a Bowbreaker, so we're keeping Bowbreaker, and Armor March 3. There's also some great seal suggestions coming up here on the left. You want to pay attention to those because some of them are critical. Anyway, so this is a great build, keeping Moonbow over top of anything else, because once you get armor buffs, you are not going to need any of this. What do I mean by that? Well, if he gets a Hone Armor, this is his new stat line. Take a look at this. The only reason why we're not an S rank in aggression is because of Sanaki. Otherwise, we just shred things. I mean, look at that. I mean, it's red that's keeping us down everywhere. Everything else is just falling apart to us. And even then, red is still just not living very long. Now, of course, he's got a little bit of bulk there with a Close Counter and with his armor and everything, but he's not going to be tanking everything all day long, especially red. So keep that in mind. Just keep him away from red. But otherwise, yeah, one Hone is all you need, and he's just a complete beast. Take a look at the obituaries, and this is of course without that buff. Now 9 and 8 is what he's doing vanilla, walking out into the field, and 4 and 15 on defense. Yeah, I'll show you that abysmal score in just a moment, but we do take care of quite a few threats right away, which is wonderful. And there are, I mean, looking at what we initiate against, we can't take out a buffed up Hector, we can't take out any of the red distant counter units, and Camus really does punk us down too once once he's buffed up, so that's a thing. Otherwise, there's still a lot of people who we can deflect off of us, which is wonderful. So yeah, this is actually just a pretty solid build, at least as far as the popular threats go, even before you get your buff. Defensive-wise, the only people we're getting rid of are Reinhardt and Brave Lynn there. Everybody else breaks us. If you get some good support from Seals, you'll be able to handle all the bow users, but otherwise, yeah, just try not to get attacked. Great advice, right? This is the last build I'm going to go ahead and share with you, just a Raventome build to show you what you can do with support. I wanted to show a couple other builds, but honestly, this is probably the most popular things that people are wondering if they could do with their Henry, so here it is. And the Raventome works out rather well. I mean, we have decent matchups all across the board, except for with red. I'm sure you could expect that. F- all the way across the board on them, but otherwise, we do rather well, and we can even block blue and colorless pretty well in melee, which is wonderful. So the Triangle Adept, Bowbreaker, once again, you need to have Bowbreaker to be able to help cover you from Brave Lynn. There's other ones that might give you slightly better matchups in other regards, but Bow Lynn is everywhere. You need to have Bowbreaker. And if we take a look at the DPT, it's actually a really favorable matchup. 11 and 7 is what we're doing on Initiation. We take care of a lot of stuff. It's a very solid build. It's a good support one. Now, of course, we were losing to red before. We're definitely losing to red now. As a matter of fact, we used to be able to fend off Cecilia. Now we can't. As far as on the defense, we could take care of a lot of bow users, we could take care of a lot of blue, and that's it. Everybody else is either going to hurt us or kill us, especially if they are red. So my recommendation is stay away from red, but everybody else is really pretty much open game on this particular build. So it is very durable for Henry, and it's something that he needs. He needs that durability. It's sort of scary to say, oh, just stay away from red, but to be quite honest with you, in this meta, there's no red that's going to be able to sneak up on you and just gank you. So I think this is actually a really great option. And hey, do me a favor, if you like your Fire Emblem information hot and fresh like grandma's cookies, hit that subscribe button. Mine is Deltran. Thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate all of you. And until next time.